Tech Tales 75. Today is July 5th, 2021 at 6:44 a.m. Reading time slips from June 28th, which was a Monday. And this is for a company. It seems to me that I've reported them in Tech Tales before. It's a woman who works out of her home for a company that you might refer to as a holding company. It has a few different businesses. So there's some farming involved, there's some book publishing involved. I think there's some kind of water services involved. I'm not clear on what all she is working for, but essentially she does bookkeeping and some other tasks for this, what I'll refer to as a holding company. So this is 1 o'clock to 1:41 p.m., 41 minutes. Phone and remote support. Let's see. Mike Charlie would be her name. It's not in the time slip because it's a single person office that I'm billing this to. Phone and remote support to install new version of QuickBooks as an upgrade, activate license, and update company files. Recorded license information for future reference, increased previous company list size. I should say increased recently used company list size. Uninstalled one obsolete program, advised to keep TurboTax programs open until PDF files of tax returns are made. Updated Windows security information. Did I just say advised to keep TurboTax programs open? I don't have the word open there. If I did. All right, so let's go break that down a little bit. Phone and remote support to install new version of QuickBooks. So the original reason for the call was that she's got a new version of QuickBooks, which she has to have every few years because she does payroll. Some of my clients will keep using a version of QuickBooks for 5 or 6 years before they go to a new version, and typically they won't go to a new version until they're somehow forced to. What would be the reason if it's not payroll? Yeah, I don't recollect. It seems like they get forced to upgrade for some reason, but theoretically they could stay with a QuickBooks desktop version for a long time. So she wanted me to do this because she was concerned that it could be more complicated than she would be aware of. And it's sort of, yeah, that's true, because it forces a backup. So then you got to choose where to do the backup. Her routine backups are all automated so that she never has to make that kind of selection herself. And also, I'm happy for her to do that, to have me do that, because I also record the license, which becomes really useful when we replace her computer down the road. Let's say 2 or 3 years down the road, or even next year, we replace the computer and ask her, okay, where's the license information for QuickBooks? Well, I can pull it off of the old computer if the old computer is still functional. Now, I have another task that I was working on for a client over the weekend, where she has been installing her own PayrollMate update every year, and she has not been retaining the installation files. Now she has a new computer, and she told me a few days ago she needs all those old versions installed. So how do I do that? Well, I am finding a way to do that. I won't elaborate on that now until I get to that time slip. So then also during the installation of QuickBooks, there's a place where you make a choice. And what it amounts to, the impact it makes, is one choice is going to overwrite the previous version of QuickBooks such that the older version of QuickBooks is no longer there. The alternative way is going to create a sibling, basically, so that you have both versions of QuickBooks. She doesn't want the old version of QuickBooks, so the right choice for her is to overwrite the previous version. But she probably wouldn't have understood that from that choice. She would have had that option of, what was it, standard installation or custom installation. And there's a paragraph to read about each of those. I'm pretty sure she would have not understood which direction to go or what the ramifications would be. Then increase previous company size list. So she uses, I think it's 6 different company files because she manages all these different businesses for this one holding company. So I noticed when she went to open a previous company in the old version that there was only the recently used company list only was enough to do 3 or 4 previous companies. So she was having to go through file, open, and maneuver to a folder and open a company file. I said, well, if we increase the number of companies that can be on this recently opened list, they'll always be there. And it's just quicker and easier for you to open a company file. So she liked that. Uninstalled one obsolete program. I don't remember what that program was. It was something that she had used in the past. She had it for, I think it was an online conferencing program. Not one of the major ones that you would recognize or that I would recognize. Then the TurboTax programs, she had a bunch of old TurboTax programs because she does tax processing for other people, not for her main job. So she has all these older versions of the program. She's asking if she needs to keep those. So we took a look, and what I was saying is, well, if you need to go back to those tax returns, do you have them in a PDF form to be able to see them? And she at first said yes, but then we looked at some icons on the desktop, and that wasn't quite the case. So I reviewed with her some pointers of how to go about that, and we did delete some of the older versions that we could tell that she does have the PDFs for. Then updated Windows security configuration. That was just the Windows Defender in the system tray. It had an exclamation mark. So I just went in there and applied whatever it was asking for. Next is the law office mic, June 30th, 13 minutes from 8:51 to 9:04 a.m. And this is labeled for Romeo in the office, Romeo Mike, wife of the attorney. Received phone request to reconfigure GLM Assistant computer for Golf replacing Alpha. So Alpha was the new employee that I've recently reported time slips that I've reconfigured the computer for Alpha, who replaced the previous person. Well, Alpha has lasted less than a week, and now she's being replaced by Golf. Discussed with Romeo Mike recommendation to implement generic identity for assistant position so that reconfiguring for a specific individual is no longer needed at that desk. Approval received and details determined. I discussed that with Golf, the new employee, the new assistant. So when I reported this time slip or this client a week or so prior to this, when I was reconfiguring the computer for the new person, I commented about how this office, we reconfigured the computer for the specific individual, which means every time a new person comes into this position, I have to do a fair amount of reconfiguring work that I think is pointless. So this was my conversation with the attorney's wife, recommending that I take this opportunity to reconfigure it with generic identity so that if and when that person gets replaced in the future, you just sit the new person down and they just take off running. No reconfiguration needed by me. Am I designing myself out of work? Yes. Am I okay with that? Yes. I think it's a right way for that to be configured. Now, the other people in the office, the attorneys, I don't expect such a quick turnaround. This assistant desk, that position in any office seems to turn over quicker. So the discussion that I had with Romeo Mike was to reconfigure the computer login credentials so it would be generic, and we came up with a generic email address for that person so it would be generic also. In a subsequent time slip, part of that gets reversed. So then I think that's probably good for today. I may be doing a live stream later today related to a problem I'm having with this computer. So it would be something that I would call a troubleshooting challenge. Not certain that, and if I do that, I'm not certain if it's going to be before lunch in my time zone or after lunch, and I'm in the Pacific Daylight Time Zone, California. Okay, so that'll do it. I hope this was useful. Have a great day. Catch you later. Goodbye.